Here's a story that was in Yahoo's front page. U.S. Navy ship fires warning shots at Iranian vessel. Okay, so let's read this article and see how the mainstream media is reporting on stuff like this. A U.S. Navy patrol ship fired warning shots at an Iranian Revolutionary Guard vessel in the Persian Gulf Tuesday after it approached within 150 yards, a U.S. defense official said. So we're in the Persian Gulf, which is thousands of miles away from America. They're in the Gulf near their borders. And of course, the story is always that they're aggressors, right? If there were Chinese or Russian battle cruisers in the Gulf of Mexico, wouldn't we be like, hey, what the fuck? What the fuck are you doing here? Right? Wouldn't we be like, what the hell's going on? Here's the quote. The IRGCN boat was coming in at a high rate of speed. It did not respond to any signals. They did not respond to any bridge-to-bridge calls, and there was no choice except to fire the warning shots. So if I'm hanging out on your street with a gun, a giant gun, and I've got a rocket launcher and a big fucking sword and a pistol, and you're like, who the fuck is this guy? And you turn and come at me, and then I say, stop coming at me, and you're like, who the fuck, why are you on my lawn? And then I have to shoot one just over your head. I had no choice. This is how our police react. A woman in a bathrobe calls the police, and we see her in a alley, so we gun her down. Now there's repercussions because she's a white lady. If she was a black man, there would be nothing, but now there's repercussions. This is how we react to everything, right? The incident occurred about 3 a.m. local time in the northern Persian Gulf, where the Iranian vessel began to approach the USS Thunderbolt. That's the name of the vessel. After the U.S. ship fired the warning shots, the Iranian vessel stopped, the official said, at which point the Thunderbolt continued on her way. The episode marks the latest in a series of close encounters between U.S. ships and Iranian naval vessels. Yeah, because we're big, crazy America. And now there's a wingnut in the White House. Are there Islamic extremists within Iran? Absolutely. Are some of them dangerous? For sure. But there's also a lot of like young, progressive, who want democracy, who embrace the Western culture and music and stuff and want to have a more progressive Islamic, Muslim religion and give women more power. They want to have that. Yes, there's extremists. But, we've got a lot of extremists in this fucking country, too. There's a lot of Christian wingnuts who have guns and think that God told them to go whatever, keep the white race pure. They're here in this country. So when we talk about Iran, like, they're nuts. They're a crazy bunch of wingnuts over there. But America's this, like, it's such bullshit. This is the quote in the Yahoo News. Actually, this is in the AFP. They reprinted the story from the AFP. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard are a paramilitary force that answers directly to the Islamic Republic's supreme leader. You mean just like the USS Thunderbolt? Right? If the president, whomever, Trump, Obama, Bush, Clinton says, hey, get me connected to the Thunderbolt. The president calls the Thunderbolt and says, you do this, you do that. You fire across their bow or whatever. The Thunderbolt will do that. So the Thunderbolt, in essence, answers directly to the supreme leader of the, united corporate war machine of America. It's so funny to me how this is depicted. And it's always shown that, America's the good guys. And those wingnuts over there. And how do you think we're perceived now? Especially now that this country voted in Trump. We are viewed as nuts. We thought, people were like, what the fuck are you doing with Bush and going into Iraq? Obama came in and, everything's better. Obama took us from 2 wars to 7. But when Trump won, everyone went, America is done. I did a video on that historian from the University of Wisconsin-Madison that said America's going to not be a superpower by 2030. It might be accelerated closer to 2025. That's only 8 years away, folks. And this kind of shit, everyone's kind of sick of it in the rest of the world. And then I know the right way, oh, you just let terrorists run loose. Well, wait a minute, we're in their fucking backyard. And if we're going to look at the Islamic extremists, and there are, we need to look at the extremists in this country. How come when a white supremacist kills somebody in this country, it's never called an act of terrorism? How come they're not the KKK and white supremacist groups and these militias, these heavily armed militias that are here in this country right now, how come they're never referred to as terrorist organizations? How come it's always just some sort of was always some lone wolf? Oh, and he suffers from mental illness. So what, mental illness doesn't affect Muslims? So you're trying to tell me none of the terrorists, none of these guys that got bombs or hijacked a truck and drove it in, none of them suffered mental illness? None of them. They were all extremist wingnuts and we need to defend them? This kind of shit is why everyone is scared of us and is responding with like, violence begets violence, man. Right? You ever seen a little dog? They bark the most because they're terrified, because they're little. When they see a big dog, they go, bark, 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 they bark and go nuts. That's what little countries do when we send the USS Thunderbolt into their waters. But it's our waters because Saudi Arabia lets us there because we need to go take everybody's oil. So it's preposterous. Thanks for watching.